Hi, everybody. In recognition of Latex Allergy Awareness Week, which is the first week of October, we bring you Living with a Latex Allergy, a conversation on maneuvering through the obstacles of our allergy and how we have found solutions. Can we go to the next? Okay. So a couple of housekeeping things. First and foremost, we are not doctors or experts. We are only speaking to our experience. So please, if you're out there watching this, make sure you're doing your own research, make sure you're consulting your own experts, because we are only speaking to our personal experience. Another item of housekeeping is that we are trying to keep discussion topics to 15 minutes. So when we come to the point where we have about 5 minutes left, you will see a raised hand in the corner of my screen. And that's going to indicate that we have about 5 minutes left and that we need to start wrapping up that discussion topic. And if we reach the 15 minutes, then I'll just say something to the effect of, okay, we're out of time. We're ready to move on to the next discussion. So I think that's all as far as housekeeping stuff goes. And we're going to kick it off with, what is your latex story? So whoever would like to take that topic, let's take it away.
I'll start. Katie, I'm Katie's mom, and our latex story is a two-part section. I had worked in the hospital. I had my latex allergy is more just sensitivity, where I get a rash from wearing latex gloves. I left the hospital, working in a hospital in 1995, and gloves had just started coming out at that time, and I barely used it. And Katie's story is that I consider myself more a mom of a child with a latex allergy. She was diagnosed at 2 years old with, by the dentist. His latex gloved hands had left handprints of hives on her face. And we were fortunate, because of her early diagnosis, that we were told to stay away from balloons, rubber bands, latex gloves, and that was the extent of it. We did not realize how extensive and progressive a latex allergy can be until Katie was about 8 years old. And she can continue from there.
So when I was about 8, I started going to the orthodontist. When I was like 12 is when I had braces. So the way that our office was set up is it was a big open room, and there were 4 chairs and like a center, I don't know, station for like the people treating us, I guess. I was going to say doctors, and then I was like, oh, the orthodontist, that's the word. But so it was an open room. He used latex gloves on everybody else, never washed his hands, which is disgusting on so many levels. And then came to me and then changed his gloves to the latex-free gloves and worked on my braces. So every single time I went, my reaction got worse and worse and worse, to the point where at one point I literally had a reaction like right in the chair. And as soon as the appointment was over, rushed to the emergency room because I couldn't breathe at that point. So I was about 12. And, you know, when you're 12, a lot of things are happening in your life. It's a weird age to be in general. And throwing on top of that a crazy medical condition that is constantly changing and constantly progressing, it was like, oh my God, you know, what do I do? What happens from here? And since then, you know, being that a latex allergy is progressive, yes, I've gotten worse, but at the same time, you know, you kind of along the way figure out how to deal with it, figure out what triggers you, and figure out what to stay away from. So that's kind of my story.
I guess I'll go next. I was officially diagnosed in June of 2002 on Michael's birthday, when he was actually born. I had been in the hospital for a month beforehand on bed rest, and basically touched by latex medical equipment 24/7 for that time. And so just before having Michael, I went into anaphylaxis. And thankfully, I was surrounded by medical people who could take care of it. So obviously I knew not to, make sure that they weren't using latex tourniquets on me for blood draws or latex gloves, those kinds of things. But I really didn't know the extent of it. And, my allergy progressed after that I became airborne. And, if I was around balloons, I would have trouble. And so Michael basically was on latex precautions his whole life because I was not as well as I know now, but so he's been pretty safe his whole life until now. He's in college and not in a safe house all the time, and not with people who understand the latex allergy enough. So Michael, I'll let you take it from there.
Thanks. So as my mom said, I've been on latex precautions all my life. That's just how it always was. I was officially diagnosed in my junior year. So that was like fall of 2018, junior year of high school. And so, I had to make sure the school was informed of my allergy and so that they could prevent exposures for me. We're aware of the situation. And for the most part, that was pretty successful. Though now that I'm in college, there's different laws, and it's a lot more independent. I have to advocate for myself, and I'm used to advocating for my mom, for me, for others, friends who have a latex allergy too. So it's not anything new, but it's just been different because there's just been resistance and challenges in trying to educate people about latex allergy and raising the awareness when it doesn't seem like people don't want to be aware. And so I kind of lost my train of thought for a second.
It's an everyday situation for you, pretty much, of having to write emails, and you're lucky to have your friend group to have your back at school.
Yeah. There have been instances where I try to go to an event on campus and I can't because there are balloons inside or outside the building where the event is, and so I can't go to be there. And that's disappointing because it's something I wanted to do and I'm blocked from doing so. And then I have to write an email to all the people that need to be informed so that it can be addressed, and then sometimes I don't even get a response. So that can be pretty difficult to have to go through all of that, but I keep doing it because they need to make a change, and I'm trying to help push them towards doing so at my college.
That's a hard part about being a mom with or without a latex allergy, is that you can't help your son who's over 18. So that's something I was thinking about last night, that try to make sure you have things put in place for your children before they age out and you're unable to advocate on their behalf. So I'm glad that Michael's been my advocate all of this time, so that he has the knowledge and the skills to stick up for himself. So.
Oh, Ruthy, you're muted.
I'm muted.
There we go.
Got you back. Now you're muted, Ruthy. Ruthy, you're muted. We can't hear you. There you go.
I'm sorry. I thought I was muted when I wasn't. I'm sorry. my latex allergy, looking back, I was probably sensitized with a rubber catheter when I was 2. And so I kind of have grown up being sensitive, especially to smells of latex. And I just thought I was sensitive to smells. I couldn't wear Band-Aids. I learned early on sensitive skin, but I could always wear them on my hands and knees and feet, on the tougher skin and elbows. And I early on, I had this aversion to certain stores and to certain clothing, and I didn't like to be around some Band-Aids, or not Band-Aids, rubber bands. Some smelled really bad and some didn't. But none of us knew anything about latex allergy at that point. It was tied to gloves. And so I just avoided things that I didn't like. Thank goodness I was that kind of kid that if I didn't like it, I didn't do it and I didn't go there or wear something. So that actually is probably what helped keep my latex allergy from getting bad earlier. As I got older, I didn't like to blow up balloons anymore. They made my lips tingly and I could taste the taste of balloons for a really long time. And so I either had a little pump or I gave the balloon to someone else to blow up and I would tie it and just avoided that. It wasn't until 2008 and my son's orthodontist told us to put latex allergy on his records because they had tied the brackets on his 2 front teeth together with a latex thread, and the taste drove him insane. He was up most of the night. The next morning, he said, "Mom, we have to get this out of here." So I called and they worked us in. And at that point, the orthodontist said that that was one of the first clues that someone had a latex allergy, was when they kept tasting latex after they'd had it in their mouth. And bells went on with the balloons. And I thought, okay, I need to put latex allergy on my things too. But again, that's all I knew. And we didn't think anything of it. Fast forward to 2017, and I was being treated for some palmar warts on my thumbs. And as a last ditch effort, my dermatologist prescribed a topical medicine that was actually supposed to cause a localized reaction. And because they were itchy, I covered them with Band-Aids. And the itching got worse and they got swollen and gross. And I thought the medicine was working. I decided at the point where I was not able to sleep, they were itching so much. And I decided to give my thumbs a rest. So I quit the medicine. My thumbs continued to get worse. And I decided they needed some air. So I switched Band-Aids and poof, over maybe 1 day, 2 days, they got better. The swelling went down and they weren't icky, and I didn't clue in. And then my daughter got sick over Thanksgiving. And I went back to the waterproof Band-Aids and I put them on and had an immediate reaction. And my thumbs swelled up and got itchy just almost immediately. I took them off and looked at the packages, and one had latex and one didn't. And that led me to my allergist, and he diagnosed me based on my history with latex allergy, and also tested me for banana, because at that point, banana had started bothering me. And it was the first cross food that did bother me. And I tested mildly allergic to it. And at that point was when I got online and found the latex allergy Facebook groups because I was looking for a list of cross foods. I couldn't find all of the lists didn't match, and I didn't understand that. So I was hoping to find a list, and now I know that some studies study different foods than others. So not always are the lists going to be the same, but that led me to the group. And that's when I figured out that it was a progressive allergy. And I had looked, my life had been a slow progression up to the Band-Aids, which were, you know, my hands were wet and water releases more of those latex particles. And so, and it was on them constantly, and they were already irritated from the medicine. So it was like this perfect storm to escalate my allergy. I thought I would have years before I needed an EpiPen. And people in the group suggested, hey, you probably ought to get one just in case. Well, it was 2 years later, not quite 2 years later, when I had my first anaphylactic reaction that I needed an EpiPen. And so I was glad that I had listened to the advice and the stories of the people in the groups. So I was prepared. Mine now has progressed enough that I really have to cover everything. I have to wear a respirator. When I go places, I don't go in stores anymore. I'm essentially homebound except for doing a grocery pickup, walking with a friend, and going to doctor's appointments. And so I'm kind of that end of the spectrum that people don't want to go to. And we need to know that it is progressive and help. That's kind of our ultimate goal, is helping people realize that they can avoid it. So that's my story.
My story is pretty similar to Ruthy's in that it's a progressive story. I actually came home from the hospital as a newborn already with eczema. And I have to wonder all these years later if that had something to do with latex. I was a C-section in the 70s. So I, not sure. But from the time I was an infant, my mother and then myself were told that I was just a sensitive child. I had sensitive skin. There was never any reason for it other than I was sensitive. And my mom, thank goodness, did so many things when I was a child to protect me, knowing that, the littlest thing could set my skin off, and I'd be covered in eczema. And, a lot of children are told, or parents are told, your child will likely outgrow eczema. I have eczema to this day. I have never outgrown my eczema, and I'm 49 years old. So it's just one of those things for me. My mom says I reacted to Band-Aids when I was a young child. I don't really recall that, but I also don't really recall when I remember reacting to Band-Aids. It's just, again, one of those lifelong things because I was sensitive. In junior high, that's really the first absolute connection to latex that I can remember making. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I was on the yearbook committee and we pasted all those pictures in with rubber cement. And I would leave those committee meetings with horrible headaches. I didn't get headaches as a child, but I would leave yearbook committee with horrible headaches, dizziness. My throat would be sore and swollen. And I would say to my friends, that glue, it's so awful. It makes me feel so awful. And they'd say, yeah, I know what you mean. So I just thought it was normal. I thought everybody reacted that way. As a teen, I discovered that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't wear makeup. I would just end up with horrible rashes, terrible eczema. I eventually had to accept the fact that I just couldn't wear makeup. Again, thinking it's because I have sensitive skin. in 1998, when I was first married after college, I had minor surgery to remove a few precancerous moles from my stomach and my back. And that minor surgery set up an entire chain reaction of things. I experienced hives from head to toe for the first time in my life. I was having allergic reactions to the sutures, to Band-Aids, to the steri strips they tried to put on me, any of the adhesives, tapes they were using to cover the, tape down gauze. It was crazy. I mean, I had never quite experienced anything like that. And it took 2 months on steroids to calm my body down enough where I could actually put on clothing and go to work. So it was such a crazy time. I also at that time developed allergies to antibiotics that I had been able to take in the past, though I had been allergic to many medications in the past as well. And my dermatologist labeled me on my medical chart from that time. It says hyperreactive. So nobody at that time clued in that it was latex allergy. And interestingly enough, I also at that same time, as I was going through all this, developed my first latex cross-reactive food to mangoes. And even with that information, none of my doctors picked up on latex allergy. I had no clue that there was such a thing as cross-reactive foods, and yet here I was reacting to them. But again, I'm sensitive. In fact, now I'm beyond sensitive, I'm hyperreactive. So it took a few years for my body to calm down from that incident. So in the meantime, I had been reacting to all sorts of things that had never really set me off before. And what I didn't understand at that time is that my latex allergy had taken a jump to another level. In 2009, I had a crown put in, and it was late in the afternoon when I had it done. And by the time I woke up the next morning, I had to call the dentist and have them rip the crown out, because I was having a severe reaction to the adhesive that they used to put the crown on. And my throat was swelling and my voice was hoarse, my throat was swelling, my face was all swollen up. I had hives in and around my mouth and on my tongue. It was a bit of an emergency situation looking back on it. I didn't even realize how bad it was at that time. I just knew it was scary, and I called the dentist, and they immediately got me in and pulled the tooth out after going through a root canal and a crown. So that was fun. And it was my dentist who first said to me, "You have a latex allergy." And I said, "A latex allergy? Oh, okay. Well, I guess that makes sense. I react to Band-Aids, And so I was advised that I should put on any of my medical documents that I have a latex allergy, so that I could avoid gloves and adhesives at the dentist and the doctor. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, that's what I thought latex allergy was. And I would go on about my merry little hyperreactive life I was living. So I started to put some of the pieces together. And then 4 years ago, my allergy took another major jump to airborne reactions. And I didn't have a clue what was going on. I was trying to put the pieces together. I had another dental incident where the dentist, and this was a dentist that was aware of my latex allergy. And nonetheless, we inadvertently used something containing latex, perhaps a dental dam, when she was doing some work, and within a couple of hours, my entire mouth and throat were blistered, and the outside of my lip, where she had dripped some product down my lip. And I immediately called her, and she said, FaceTime me. So we were FaceTiming and I was showing her the blisters and she was like, oh my God, like, I don't even, what did we do? She ended up having to put me on a miracle mouthwash for 2 weeks. It took to clear it up. I could barely swallow my own saliva without crying. It was so painful. And that, I think, was the incident that just kind of made everything blow up. Once I'm reacting to something, once something has set off a major reaction in my body, then any little bit of latex pushes me over the edge. And in the latex world, we call that our allergy bucket being full. So every little drop that goes in the bucket is just making it pour out. So I started having all these crazy reactions. And it's at this time that my sister introduced me to a dear friend of hers who suffered with severe latex allergy. And she started helping me put together the pieces of my life. And I'm going to get choked up. I'm so grateful to her. She truly saved me. I didn't know what was going on. I was always a person who didn't want to complain about things, but things were really out of control for me health-wise. She started helping me put together the dots and connect things that I didn't know were connected. For years, I had lived with random lesions between my toes that would just pop up and I would think, what is going on? I think, well, I wear flip-flops a lot. I live in flip-flops. So maybe it's that, but why? Why is flip-flops causing a lesion between my toes? And that's when I discovered that I was wearing shoes with latex. Why was I had been waking up with hives for many months. Every morning I'd wake up and my arms would be covered in hives. And I'd think, why? I don't understand. And she said to me one day, well, what's your mattress made out of? And it turned out I'd been sleeping on a latex mattress. I hadn't slept through the night in over a year. I was completely exhausted, completely overwhelmed. And once I changed out my latex mattress, boom, I was sleeping again and I wasn't waking up with hives every day. It was completely life-changing. There were smaller things like my shave gel that I had used for years, and I can use very few beauty products because of my allergies. And, a new and improved formula came out and they had added papaya extract to my shave gel. And that was the only thing that changed. And she said, that papaya is a latex cross-reactive. And I said, what on earth are you talking about? What is that? That's when she connected my mango allergy, that I react to walnuts, just the things I always thought were random about myself. It turns out that they were connected to latex. She also helped me to understand that I needed to go and see an allergist. I had never done that. Here I was in my 40s and I had never seen an allergist. I mean, I just assumed whatever, you avoid what hurts you. It's my life. That's the way my life has always been. And I'm hyperreactive after all. So I did go and make arrangements to see an allergist, which is good because while waiting for my first allergist appointment, I had my first anaphylactic reaction to avocado, which is one of the top 4 major latex cross-reactives. And I should have used an EpiPen at that time, but I didn't even have an EpiPen, nor did I know, at what point you should use an EpiPen. I wasn't educated about that at all. I also went in search of, finding a latex-free mattress at that time while waiting for my first allergist appointment. And I had my first airborne reaction in a furniture store shopping for a latex-free mattress. Here we were in the furniture store and I just couldn't breathe. I had to leave the store to catch my breath. So all of this was happening and it was very scary stuff for me to make that kind of progression. It went shortly after the furniture store incident. I was picking up my son at school, and that's when I had my first airborne reaction to balloons. There was somebody outside, a child that came out of his school while I was standing there waiting to pick him up with birthday balloons, and I had a reaction to the balloons. So I was relieved to go to the allergist and spoke with her. And in a matter of minutes, she said to me, well, you have a type 1 latex allergy. I said, what is that? I'm sensitive, right? She said, no, you have a type 1 latex allergy. She set me up on a daily medication schedule and issued my EpiPens. And here I am today, thank goodness. So that's kind of my story. I know it's long and drawn out, but for some of us, our first reactions have been immediate type 1 reactions. And for others of us, it's a very long number of years of progression. No one ever said to me that
it's amazing to look back though, isn't it? I mean, I've been allergic to latex, I think, for a much longer period of time. But like all of you, it's just was little things, Band-Aids or whatnot that would bother me. But once you know that you're allergic to latex, it's like, oh my gosh, everything makes sense. And I have the same issues with cross-reactive foods, losing things after my allergy bucket was full and not realizing that I had an allergy bucket that was full. And why am I all of a sudden allergic to shellfish? Why am I allergic to nuts now? I've been eating them my whole life. Avocados, bananas. One of the things you reminded me is that this might help some folks. I just made up my own little spreadsheet of what my main food allergies are. And of course I have latex number 1. And before COVID, when we used to go to restaurants, I would just hand this piece of paper to my server, and it made such a difference, not only in my meal and how everything was prepared, but this is a little piece of awareness and education every time we go to a restaurant or we tell another person about it. So, a lot of folks say, oh yeah, I can't eat bananas anymore. I said, well, do you have problems with Band-Aids or rubber bands or,
underwear elastic?
Yes. And so I think it's enlightened a lot of people when we share, our own situations, and by being in the group that we're all in together, we've learned so much from each other and help to keep each other safe every day. So really glad to hear everybody's stories.
I want to add, listening to Jennifer, hindsight is great. With Katie, I actually think she probably was born with the latex allergy, because for a pacifier, she would spit it. If I put a pacifier in her mouth, she would spit it across the room. Mm-hmm. And she refused any type of bottle, any type.
Both of my kids did too.
Yes, I nursed
just
her.
Realizing how they spit them out.
Yes, spit it
Michael
out.
never used one either.
She had lesions in her mouth, and the pediatrician thought it was maybe from acid from food or from sugar, and so we would just treat it with Mylanta and Benadryl, paint it on and stuff. But hindsight, could it have been the banana food, the baby food? Could it have been, don't know. And then she also had with the elastic, the bonnets and all baby clothes has elastic. So you just assume it's heat rash, so you avoid it. But, hindsight, could that all have been beginning of latex allergy contact,
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy when you look back and you can connect all those dots.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful for all of you who've helped me to do that, because all of a sudden your life makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
All those things that you were told, well, you're a sensitive child, you're hyper reactive. No joke. I remember seeing my chart at the dermatologist, and in bright red letters across the front of the chart, it says hyper reactive. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not trying to be difficult here.
Well, and then some of us are just seen as stubborn. Because I was just seen as stubborn. I didn't like to go in fabric stores. I didn't like to be around certain things. And it was me protecting myself, not even realizing it.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
I was labeled as paranoid. I used to in school wipe down all the tables because I grew up in the era of silly bands. I don't know, but like if you guys have kids, if you remember like the silly bands, they're rubber bands that like if you put them on a table or throw them somewhere, they'll like make a cool shape like a unicorn or something like that. And silly putty was big, the pencil grips, like all of that kind of stuff. I grew up with that in the classroom constantly. And like, you know, I know no kid was doing it to like hurt me, but yeah, somebody playing with silly putty on my desk would set me off and I'd be like baby wiping everything. And I got in trouble because I used all the baby wipes in the classroom and like I got banned from using the baby wipes and all of these things happening. And why are you crying all the time, Katie? Or yeah, so I got labeled as paranoid and yeah, that was my label. We are out of time, so we do need to move on.
Sorry. There we go.
Okay, how do you avoid latex?
Yeah, as you see on this chart, there's over 40,000 items in our environment that contain some form of latex in it, natural rubber latex. The things that in school would be your erasers, your, Katie says, the pen grips, the rubber bands in the classroom setting, the sports equipment. And then as you get older, the things that, you know, that you don't think about is your clothes, your undergarments, your socks. It just, the list never ends. Plants, poinsettias, that's a big one. You know, you don't think about that. The poinsettia itself, when it extracts the milk that's in it, it's in the same plant family as the rubber tree.
Mhm.
And the milk inside of it, that white sap, they say, unless you touch it. But if you think about it, everything is airborne. And if it's wet, it's going to spread some type of chemicals. I mean, not that you can see it, but it's there. And if you're sensitive, if you have a latex allergy, that's an airborne toxin for you. So just walking into a store that has the display of poinsettias, church during Christmas, this time of year is rough for people with latex allergies because of that. And then
That was my last time in a store was I got chest pain and I couldn't figure out what, and I looked and there was a whole row of poinsettia plants just at my head level. And fortunately my daughter was there with me and checked out and I left, but that was my last time in a store.
And coincidentally, that they're usually in one of the stores near me, you know, there's the whole row of them, but it's right where the heat comes down because it's as you're coming into the store and the heat is blowing right on those poinsettias and just, you know, forcing the latex
they're so
into the air.
fragile. They're so very fragile that any little wind will pop open a petal
Mhm.
and that milky sap will come out of it, be exposed. The other thing this time of year that we have to be concerned about is Halloween masks. The big displays of masks and
Yes.
For kids, you don't realize that that's, you know, along with pacifiers and bottle nipples, you know, natural rubber latex, people think that's natural, that's organic, that's safe. It's actually could be a danger. So just be aware of that. Those are the
Well, and
things.
now they have those balloon arches in the Halloween displays at a lot of places now. And so it's a double whammy with the masks and the balloons.
Mhm.
Those are
And then-
actually two of the things that Michael had trouble with at school. One was Halloween costumes and the other was they accommodated him for poinsettias and did not set up any poinsettias in the school for concerts, which they used to have the whole front of the stage with poinsettias. And because he was performing either in theater or in music, they used lights, luminaries, paper bags with lights in them instead, which was just as even more beautiful. But they didn't quite understand at first, but then they did. And so luckily they accommodated him. And then Michael, you were talking about the balloons and Halloween costumes.
Yeah, there were a few students. I went to a pre-K through 12 school, private school, and there were only about 1,000 students throughout that entire school. So like my graduating class was only 76 kids. So it was small, and you pretty much everyone kind of knew everyone for the most part. So that helped because it was kind of like, oh, that Michael, has an allergy, he can't be around this, or what ever the case might be. But like at Halloween, the movie It has a clown who carries balloons, and a few people dressed up as the clown for Halloween, and carried balloons around. And so I had to tell, an administrator, I saw balloons, they need to be removed. They can't be popped because that's incredibly dangerous, because it'll just spread the latex residue inside and on the balloon, kind of like invisible glitter, is a good way to think about it. And besides the clown, there was also a student who dressed like the little Boy Scout from the Pixar movie Up, and that's where the house has all of the balloons. And so he was carrying like a whole bunch of balloons, not just one, but a whole bunch, and that was even worse.
Well, and what people don't realize is that they're also powdered, so they don't stick to themselves or stick to each other. So like powdered latex gloves, that powder also helps disseminate the latex particles, even more so than if they weren't powdered.
I think
So you
Ruthy,
got-
the other thing to note is, different latex products contain different amounts of latex protein. It's why balloons are by far the most dangerous thing for people with latex allergy to come in contact with. I can be in a room, for example, with a latex Band-Aid. Don't put it on me, but I can be in a room with a latex Band-Aid and be okay. I could not be in a room with a latex balloon. The stretchier a product is, the more protein it takes to create that stretchy product. And it's actually the proteins in natural rubber latex that we're allergic to. So the stretchier a product is, like balloons, for example, a step below that would be latex gloves. They're not quite as stretchy as balloons. So they
Exercise bands.
Yes. All of those stretchier things contain a higher level of latex protein and create a more dangerous environment for us.
And it's more unstable. So when they're stretched, more releases. Yeah.
And latex proteins are very, very tiny. They're smaller than pollen. So, if you have a tree that spreads bright yellow pollen in the spring and you can see it all over the neighborhood, you can imagine latex protein is smaller than that. So it spreads, and cleaning it up is no easy feat.
No, it's not. And one of the big tricks that I learned actually that goes along with that is when you have a lot of airborne latex particles, you can help those settle out of the air by misting the air with either half rubbing alcohol and water or half vinegar and water, or just water, a really fine mist, and spray it up and then leave the area, and you can clean it up better. I went through a time where I sprayed the air multiple times a day because we had so much airborne latex released from things that we were using in the house that I had no idea. The latex backed rugs, every time you walk on them, they put more latex into the air. And I had latex covers. We have an in-house vac, and we had socks that protected corners when it went around corners. And those socks had latex in them. And I figured that out because my bedroom didn't smell like latex, and I vacuumed and it smelled like latex. And I got to snooping, and it actually on the box said Lycra, but it didn't say registered trademark like Mark Lycra. And that's a tricky thing. But we got rid of those, and the amount of latex in my air really dropped. But spraying that, getting those particles to settle out of the air is just a big thing.
In healthcare, we have to be concerned about vaccines and the biotops of vaccines. We're fortunate that the COVID vaccines are all latex safe, although they may have other properties in them that people are allergic to. So always find out the manufacturer data on it before medications, and to see if there's something in there that you may be allergic. And for always ask, even if you're in a latex safe facility, make sure that you ask about, because doctors don't know. They don't, the syringe, is the syringe latex safe? Is the syringe cap, the syringe tip latex safe? Is the vial not made of rubber? Those are all questions that we all have to ask.
Annie, I'd like to add on to what you said about the COVID vaccines all being latex safe. It is true that we know there are 3 approved vaccines currently in the US, and Pfizer and Moderna are both latex safe vaccines. However, Johnson & Johnson has stated via medical inquiry that they cannot guarantee they are latex safe due to the use of latex gloves in the manufacturing facility. So it's important to note and have that discussion with your doctor if Johnson & Johnson is your only option.
Right. Yeah, I forgot about that, but they do say in their data that they're latex safe unless you go and inquire further. That's why it's always
when you file an inquiry
to still ask, even if they do say it. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's another quick thing to point out, Katie. I know I see the hand raised. Under healthcare, I know that having a pharmacist who is educated about latex allergy has been a lifesaver for me. He does all the research on my medications beyond what my doctor even understands. My allergist has said that she doesn't understand why latex contaminated medications would be a problem for me with my latex allergy. But I'm lucky to have a pharmacist who truly understands that. And for anyone out there who does not have a pharmacist who understands latex allergy or is willing to learn, I highly recommend that you seek one out.
Or you do the research yourself, which is possible and some of us have to do.
Exhausting, completely exhausting. Yeah.
Okay, what does your allergy look like?
We kind of went through some of this already. For school accommodations, we have another conversation that we have done on school accommodations for 504 and IEPs, and also about service dogs that we will also be sharing at a later date. Work accommodations, it is under the American Disability, latex is under the American Disability Act. So you are able to ask for accommodations, but remember that each company will give you what they feel is reasonable accommodations. So that's the little catch key there. Every organization, every school, every company it's the reasonable that you have to continue to advocate for yourself and what you need, and make sure you use your voice to let that be known what you personally need, because every latex allergy is different for every person. None of us are the same. We all react differently. We all react to different things. We all have different extremes of it or mildness of it with different things.
Well,
And
we react to different cross foods, and some people
Yeah.
never react to cross foods. So it's a really tricky allergy to navigate because there's not one set amount of different things that you're going to react to. There, it can be, it's different for all of us here in the discussion today.
Yes.
And the important thing is to keep a history. For Katie, what helped us was I kept, not really a journal, but I kept track of all her reactions. So when we did go to the allergist, just by saying all the time she reacted to stuff, it's definite you have a latex allergy. So make sure with foods, with all your reactions, no matter what your allergy is, always record it and what you're feeling. And even if anything you think in doubt and you question about yourself, your gut feeling, this is not right, write it down. Tell your doctor, because that helps them knowing stuff. Don't ever think that, oh, it's just me. No, always express use your voice. It's very important to use your voice.
Well, and something I didn't realize or think about, I thought my environmental allergies were getting worse. So when I was going through the whole Band-Aid thing, I also thought it was a bad fall that year, and I had to up my antihistamines. Well, in retrospect, I was really reacting to the airborne latex that I was subjecting myself to unknowingly. But that was a big thing for me to realize, oh, you can be having the same reactions to latex as you can be having to something that's blooming in the spring. So it's
Right now it's ragweed and goldenrod here in our
Yes.
area, and I tested positive to ragweed a long time ago, but I didn't realize that was also a cross-reactive of latex. So yeah, getting your allergy meds balanced to cover yourself by your allergist is really important at those times of the year when the allergies are more present.
It goes back to the allergy bucket.
Yes.
When we have more environmental allergies, whether they're crosses or not, our allergy bucket has less room for a big exposure, or even maybe a little exposure. A lot of times it's just this filling of the bucket, and then it's that one drop that causes it to overflow.
And
I
the
wanted
big
to
part of,
touch
oops,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Nicole.
I was going to say that with going off of the allergy bucket, the big part of the allergy is that prevention is key. And that's also the theme of this year's Latex Allergy Awareness Week. If preventing exposures as much as possible will help you from worsening your allergy, from it progressing, having more severe reactions, whether it's, not going to a certain restaurant if they use latex gloves, or if they say they have nitrile gloves, but also use latex, because that's not good, because latex is still present in the restaurant, in the kitchen. Even if they don't use latex gloves on your food specifically, it's still contaminated. The kitchen is still contaminated with the latex residue and the particles. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Yeah.
Yeah, important to check and double check and check again.
Every time.
Yeah, every time.
And you referred to the medical practices. And one thing I want to throw out there that didn't occur to me, I was thrilled. I had to leave my 20-year-long dentist because the main dentist would not switch to latex-free gloves. And I was having airborne reactions on my skin. And that's something I didn't realize could be airborne reactions. You're reacting to the particles in the air. It doesn't necessarily mean your lungs are going to react, although they often do. But while looking for a new dentist, I thought I found one, and come to find out they were not safe. I was fortunately on prednisone, so I didn't have as bad a reaction as I would have. They gave out latex balloons, and they actually filled them in their office. They hadn't that morning, so he thought I would be fine. But again, they put so many particles in the air and everything is covered. So even if that balloon is not in that office at the time, if they've been given out for months and months and months, all of those particles are going to be stirred up, and some of them are filtered out. But if it's repeatedly added, then it's really a danger zone. So when you're looking for safe doctors or dentists mainly, make sure and ask about gloves and balloons, because I went through my 10th dentist that I contacted in our area did not give out balloons or use latex gloves.
I want to just say really quickly, because we're kind of talking a lot about how it's affecting us personally, and I want to make sure that we also say it's really a community-based approach to helping us, because none of us can do this on our own. We need what we call latex cops out there who are going to be able to protect us. So like for me, it's oftentimes my parents, my mom and my dad. They're not with me in college, so I've become my own latex cop. And as we've kind of noted, it's really exhausting. But having that community outreach, that community-based intervention in some ways is really a necessary thing, because none of us can do it on our own. We go around sniffing our houses, like we literally do, I do it, to find out what we're reacting to. And like, it's so dangerous to do that, but in order to keep us safe, that you have to. And even, I think we might talk about it later, but oftentimes when you're having a reaction, you can't address it on your own. So having people to call that will sit with you and be able to be there for you if you need something from them is really important. So what does your allergy look like? When I think of that question, for me, it's not just what does it look like for me, it's what does it look like for other people. And we have about 5 minutes left if we want to talk about that, but I wanted to just touch on that for a minute. It's really important to have your support system, that it's not just about us, it's about the dentists and the allergists and the family members, the friends, all of those people, your support people, your latex cops that are going to keep you safe.
And to jump back into the healthcare thing is that if you're going to have a procedure, it's not just with your doctor you need to check with. You need to check with the x-ray technicians, the operating room manager, the anesthesiologist. It's a big production to have a latex safe procedure done, whatever the procedure is, whether it's medical, dental, you always have to check.
But don't we always hear nobody uses latex gloves anymore anyway? Every time we hear that, then we say, go check the box.
Yeah.
Oh, lo and behold, it is latex. People assume that latex just doesn't exist in our environment anymore, and it's everywhere, and it's every day that we're faced with it. Every time we leave our homes, we have to be assessing, are we going to be safe when we go there? We have to send our latex cops in ahead of us to make sure there's no balloon display. It's not
Another place, go ahead.
No, you're okay, Ruthy, go ahead.
Well, another place that I was muted, so didn't say, is your hair care place where you get your hair cut. A lot of times they have latex gloves or other products, and you just don't think of things like that. So you're right. Every day you have to make a backup plan and have people that can help you in different situations. One thing I learned this year that didn't ever occur to me, I've always hated the smell, again, is asphalt contains latex and tar. And I learned that I can avoid reacting if I turn off my HVAC for a little while if I'm on new asphalt, so I don't pull all of those latex particles into my van, even though it's hot. But when it's hot, it's releasing more. So we learn little tricks. That's what's so nice about connecting with people who have latex allergies, is that we do learn tricks like turning off your air conditioner and only using your recirc, not using fresh air when you're on highways or new asphalt areas and things like that. But yeah, the community, it's definitely, it takes a village.
This is a big slide. It's got one question and it's so loaded, right? If I have to answer for me, and I'm sure each of us have similar answers, but maybe your key answer is different. For me, I wish I had known that latex allergy is progressive, incurable, and potentially life-threatening. Those are the three things I wish any medical professional along the way had told me. And I realized that they were undereducated themselves as latex allergy was becoming more common. I just wish I had known. If I had known what I know now 20 years ago, I could have prevented myself from progressing to the point that I'm at. And yet I'm so grateful to those who've given me the information that I now have, so that I can hopefully prevent myself from progressing to the point where Ruthy is, for example, that she's homebound. I don't want to progress to that. Who does? You know, but I could have kept myself so much safer if I had only known. So that's the one thing I try and impart to anyone that I talk to, you know, knowing what we know now. You know, you'll have a friend who says, well, that's weird. I react to bananas or avocados, and I always say, and do you react to Band-Aids by any chance?
Yeah.
These are the common things that people will have used, you know, and well, as a matter of fact, I do. I get a rash. Please go see an allergist. You know, please be aware of these things. You may or may not have a latex allergy, but please check it out. I wish I had known sooner. And that's my answer to that question.
And part of the tricky thing is not all allergists realize that it's progressive, or if they do, they don't tell you. Even my allergist who diagnosed me, who had worked with lots of latex allergy patients 20 years ago, was so excited to get my information that I was getting out of my latex groups, and, you know, didn't know that, yes, there are safe brands of food. That's been a huge lifesaver for me. One of the people in one of the groups puts together a list of latex safe food manufacturers in the United States. And that's all we have now. I don't buy things that are not from a manufacturer that produces things with latex, because it's really tricky to figure out if you're reacting to the food or if you're reacting to cross-contamination from latex from something else. And if you can take that cross-contamination out of the equation, then it's way easier to figure out what's going on. It's still tricky, but it's way easier.
That's one of the reasons why I just planted lettuce in my garden, because then I know that I grew that lettuce. I didn't use any gloves to pick it out of the ground. And lettuce is one of the things that I'm not so sure about right now. So I'm testing that allergy by growing my own. And I know that's not what this topic is, but that is one of the things that we've done, is started to grow a lot more of our own vegetables to try and keep safe. My thing that I wish I had known is pretty much the same as Jennifer's, that I wish I had known that it was so progressive, because I really thought I was doing a good job of keeping myself safe when I really wasn't. Like working in a doctor's office where they used latex gloves, but they weren't near me because I was up at the front desk, but I handled the folders that they touched over and over again when they took a patient back, those folders were being touched and coming back to me, and then I was touching it. And I didn't have any concept of that then. And I mean, this was many years ago, but I ended up not working there very long because something bothered me about being in that place. And she kept telling me that it was too expensive, or she couldn't order or something. And so, we have to trust ourselves and that little voice inside our heads or our bellies or whatever that are telling us, you're not in a safe place, you're not doing a safe thing, get to somewhere safe. And I think that's one of the things, is that, your body is telling you you're having a reaction, so you need to do something about it. So pay more attention now.
I think for us, the one thing that we wish we knew was that latex is an airborne pathogen. And,
Yes.
Walking in a room with balloons that are on the ceiling for decoration, thinking it's going to be safe. And then that was one of the first times Katie had her throat. It progressed to her throat, and not just a contact allergy. Was going to a birthday party, thinking that, this is safe, she just won't play with the balloons. That wasn't the case. That was the beginning of her progressing when she was 5 years old, was because it's an airborne pathogen. And I don't think doctors tell you that.
I remember going into Party City, I don't even know what for, with Mom, and probably every time we went, your voice would get hoarse, you'd lose it, and you'd start wheezing, and we'd have to go like right away.
And I had no idea that I was doing that to myself at that point, because I wasn't touching them. I wasn't going to get any balloons. I just went in there for plates and decorations or whatever. But yes, I forgot about that. But of course, you were getting exposed at the same time, and I wish I had known that too. So.
And it's a common misconception. We hear it, all the time in our allergy groups. People will say, yeah, but I don't react to balloons, or I don't react to, this or that. And I think one of the things that we're constantly, those of us who have made that progression or have been educated on the progression of latex allergy, one of the things we're constantly trying to help the newcomers understand is that what you don't react to today, you can react to tomorrow. And it's not always going to be a slow progression of reaction to that object. Your first reaction to balloons could be full-blown anaphylaxis. So even if you aren't noticing a reaction to a particular latex exposure, your body is still taking that in. And every exposure advances your allergy. Every exposure progresses your allergy. It all adds up. It's all that drop in the bucket. And I wish that people truly understood that, so that we could help each other be a whole lot safer.
Yeah, I think that the main goal is that you don't react. I mean, that's everybody's goal. To stay safe, be in a safe environment, and not have to react.
Near impossible to do, but yeah, that is the goal. Unfortunately, it's hard to do.
We try hard every day.
Yeah, that's and that's exactly what we're out here doing, is just doing our best to not die.
Well,
I'm constantly hashtagging at the end of
Yeah.
my post is I'm still learning.
Yes.
And every day we're learning something new. I've got the sniffles today because I cut up peppers to put in the dehydrator. Not peppers I'm going to eat because I now cross react to peppers. But I thought it'd be okay if I handled them.
I'm with you there.
Breathing the fumes in, and I can't stop sniffling today.
All right. How do you raise awareness?
I think all of us here in this conversation, we all are advocates in our own way in what we do in the community. And for Latex Allergy Awareness Week, we try to get proclamations for the week in our states, writing to our governors. And Lisa got from Virginia. And
This is showing her proclamation.
that's why we decided to raise awareness with this conversation to help spread awareness and education, because the more we educate ourselves and others, hopefully change will be made. And to be honest, since Katie was 2 years old and she's now 22, I mean, what we've learned throughout the years and the changes that have been made, even with manufacturers and things, it's pretty amazing. I mean, the people that started the support groups, they've really helped us. And so the only way that we can help each other and advocate for others is by sharing our experiences. And we're grateful for the organizations that are out there to help us, the Allergy and Asthma Network, and Spina Bifida organization. There's many. I mean, we're lucky we have Google and we can search, because when Katie was 2, there was none of that. And then I discovered the American Latex Allergy Association, which they transferred over to their information over to the Allergy and Asthma Network, so that it wouldn't be lost when they ended their organization. But I mean, we're grateful for anybody that helps to spread awareness and educate others.
and the even if you're homebound, the beauty of the internet is that you can still help spread the word and you can still help others. And I've gotten so much help from the latex allergy groups, and I try to pay it forward by helping those that are coming in that don't have any idea, and maybe less of an idea than I had when I was coming in. Especially when they have kids, it's just heartbreaking. And also I remind my people who have young kids that are upset about not being able to go to parties and keeping their kids from parties because they have balloons, and they may be protecting their kids too, because so many of our kids end up with latex allergies. Both of mine have latex allergies, and the small amount that I have had a latex allergy and known it has helped them probably, but in retrospect, it would have been nice to avoid a whole lot of stuff had we only known.
And now that we know, there are so many alternatives and products that are latex free, using paper lanterns or Mylar balloons or streamers or those kinds of things for decorating, because balloons are so dangerous, not only to us, life-threatening to us, but also, we see several states having bans against releasing balloons. Well, it's not just for the turtles and in the ocean, but it's for us that keeps us safer. But they're part of, I think, spreading this is if you're invited to a party and you ask about balloons by talking to whoever that is. And a lot of times we've offered to bring decorations just so that, you know, okay, you don't know if you like, I'll bring the paper lanterns with me and decorate for you so you won't have balloons and I'm able to enjoy myself at the party. So that's, and we've had, when we talked about a community, that's, we've spread awareness about latex-free alternatives, and that's how we keep ourselves safe and we keep other people safe. Like, you know, you said, Ruthy, with the kids not being exposed. And so I think when you find out that you have a little child that is allergic to latex, yeah, it's freaky at first and you don't know what to do, but you take it one step at a time of taking care of safe places in your house, and then you can spread it out into your community, and whether it's your school or your friend's house or that kind of thing. And being the room mom in your child's classroom is really important. Those are kind of the things that we did when Michael was younger. And so that's why it's important for us. We've learned so many things of how to adjust and how to be safe. And Maggie is agreeing with me. And that's why I'm really glad to be part of this so that we can pay it forward too.
Another thing is how you spread awareness through calling manufacturers, calling companies. I know Lisa and Jennifer and Ruthy have done that a lot. I'll be honest that I look on the support groups. I mean, I've done my share of calling companies and stuff, but I really, through their efforts, through everybody's efforts of spreading, and every time you call that company, you're spreading education. You may get some manager that just cuts you off, which is fine, but a lot of times they're interested and they want to know more. And you just keep on talking to them. And the more you talk to them, it's amazing what you get from them because of that. And it's a ripple effect that it may change one restaurant, but then it may change 2 restaurants because of it. For us, we had talked to chefs a lot in the beginning, and just hearing them, and they're like, yes, we don't like latex gloves, but we can't buy, it's not us, we just work here, so you just go up the chain of command kind of, and you keep educating every step you go. And how you approach that, if Ruthy and Jennifer can jump in and
yeah, it's always important.
Letters and emails.
Yeah, it's always important to find that person that you can connect with, particularly at your local businesses. I know that we have a restaurant here in town that I reached out to. We had made reservations pre-COVID for dinner for Valentine's Day. And then I was in our groups and went, it never even occurred to me, this place never has balloons, but it's Valentine's Day. This is not a place I normally have to think about balloons. And I thought, I'd better call the restaurant and find out. And I called and I spoke to the hostess and she said, well, I'm not sure. I said, can I speak to the manager? She said, sure. So she put me through to the manager and I spoke with him and said, we love your restaurant. We love coming. We have reservations. But I needed to check with you about latex balloons because so many establishments use balloons to decorate for Valentine's Day. And he said, I am so glad you called. He said, corporate, of course, sent me a kit to decorate. And he said, absolutely, there are balloons in this kit. He said, tell me what I need to do. And I said, well, you can't have them in the restaurant. It's not that you can blow them up and I can just sit in a corner, it's not going to be safe. And he said, to the dumpster they go. He said, they're out of here. He said, I guarantee you there will be no balloons here tonight. We will not be using balloons to decorate. And thank you for letting me know. And I said, one more thing. can you make sure that the hostess is aware that she can't allow anyone in with latex balloons as well? Because it wouldn't be unusual for somebody to be walking around with a bouquet of balloons for Valentine's Day. He said, absolutely. So when we had dinner that night, I made sure to ask for the manager and to thank him personally. I mean, it really brought me to tears. The fact that I could actually feel normal for a night and get to go out safely to dinner, it meant the world to me. And so I made sure to contact the corporate office and let them know what a difference it had made for me, and to thank them and to let them know how much I appreciated this manager. And then I went a step further to post it on the Latex Allergy Awareness Arizona site, and to let others in our area know that this is a restaurant that you couldn't safely eat at. This is a manager who is willing to learn and understand. So it's important that we find those people and we share our experiences with others, to reward them for helping us to stay safe.
My mom and I, we actually went on a trip to Ireland back in 2018, and it was through a tour organization that was my orchestra was a part of. But anyway, we were in Ireland, and one of the hotels we stayed at was in Dublin, and I can't remember if it was the tour coordinator or the company or if it was you, Mom, who called, but we notified the hotel in Dublin of the latex allergy, and they got rid of all of their latex gloves in the hotel and the restaurant that was attached, a month or two in advance, and deep cleaned everything so that it would be safe for us to stay there. And though we did have some other, you're muted, Mom. But there were some other encounters along the trip that were not as safe. It was just really comforting for that one hotel that we knew it was good for us.
They really went above and beyond to make me feel comfortable. That was the most amazing thing. And all the 4 trips on the airplane, 3 out of 4 were terrific until the last one, and we were flying home, and they served Nutty Buddy ice cream cones to the entire plane without me knowing, and I'm allergic to nuts. So I did have a reaction on the last leg of the trip, but Ireland was absolutely amazing, and really aware of latex allergies.
And other food allergies too.
Yes.
Several of the restaurants we went to, they made special plates for you that didn't have your allergens.
You were asking about contacting companies, and from what I've gleaned from the groups, I typically ask if, first of all, if the company uses latex gloves, and you have to typically say that synthetic is okay, because sometimes people think of latex gloves as any kind of glove that stretches. And so they might use just nitrile gloves, which are safe, but call them latex gloves. So that's the first thing I ask is whether or not that company uses latex gloves. And then I also ask if there is any natural rubber latex, natural rubber, or dry rubber in the packaging or the glues, or any part of the product. And you have to list all those things, because not always do people make the connection between natural rubber latex and other kinds of rubber. And there are synthetic rubbers. As someone else mentioned, there are a lot of, usually we can find something that is safe of a product. We just have to figure out which ones contain latex because they don't have to be labeled. According to the FDA, latex is grass, which is generally recognized as safe. And so it doesn't have to be listed on tags. It doesn't have to be listed on ingredient labels, which they typically don't add natural rubber latex to products we eat, but it can be used in the glues and the packaging. So you need to ask as many different ways as you can. And then still they may not know. It's also, if you get an answer back right away, that's often suspect because they are usually reading the description in their catalog or just of the product. And our questions typically need to be escalated to someone higher up that can look at more information than someone just in a chat or a phone call. Is that what you were looking for, Ann?
Yes, yes, yeah. Had another thought.
We're kind of out of time, but really quickly, I want to shed some light on what Michael is doing for awareness. And I'm just going to talk about it for him because we're out of time. But Michael is, he is part of the newspaper at his school. And so he's written a lot of articles on latex allergy awareness. I know his friends have done presentations, and even all of us here, I really want to stress this because it's been something that I've been really pushing myself to embrace as well. Our existence is a piece of advocacy in and of itself because, you know, we're living proof. We're literally living proof that you can have this allergy and still have a life. It looks different, you know, but it is still here. And as much advocacy as we can do, we can do it. You know, we can call companies, we can, you know, make sure our accommodations are taken care of and all of that kind of stuff. And yes, it takes a village, but even if we hear the word no, it's still very important to go out there and to look and to advocate and to raise this awareness and inform people like, hey, this is latex, this is what it is, and this is how we can like help other people, because it's not just about us, it is about others. And yeah, even, you know, no matter how young you are, no matter how old you are, we're all out here doing our best to advocate not only for ourselves, but for others. So yeah, and with that, we're out of time for this portion, but.
So these are all the resources that we've listed here, and there's others that you can, like I said, Google is a wonderful thing, having the internet, and you'll find other, there's other advocacy groups throughout the world. There's other support groups throughout the world besides the ones we have listed here. If you do a Facebook search, I'm sure you'll find a lot more than we have listed. The Allergy and Asthma Network, their complete guide to latex allergy is a great resource. We use that link in almost every email we send out because it has so much information, and they have downloads that can be printed for restaurants, for schools, they have office supply lists, they have a sports and education schools, an alternate latex alternate list. The spina bifida also has a common household list that it was last updated in 2015, so that you know, everything is always revolving, so nothing stays the same. So it's hard to find a updated list, but at least it gives you an idea to go by. The Facebook groups, as I said, and then the FARE, Food Allergy Resources, has the care plan that we talked about. And that is this here, that some people, you can take it to your doctor. Some doctors have their own action plans that they give their patients to carry. For Katie, she carried a letter from her doctor along with her birth certificate with her EpiPens, because the thought was she was so young, if there was an emergency, they would need to know her age and all that information, and also a medic alert card with our contact information and stuff. So she carried that in a Ziploc bag in her backpack as a child and wherever she went. And I think she still carries it now. And so that was her action plan, was the letter from the doctor, from the allergist. And like I said, make sure you go to your doctor and get, discuss it and know and share it with your family and your friends and the teachers. And, this is something that you need to share with others. You can't do it yourself. You just can't. It's impossible. And the balloon handout is also a good thing that we share with people. And you can see here are the latex proteins. That's always an eye opener, just that first bullet point. If that's all they look at, that is so helpful for all of us, I think. And anybody else have anything else to add before we close?
I appreciate being with all of you today and being part of the group to help other people get through what it's like having a latex allergy and how to deal with it every day. So you've all made it easier for me.
Yeah, I'd piggyback on that and just say thank you to you all. At one point or another, you've all brought things to my attention or educated me on pieces that have frankly saved my life. So I appreciate that greatly. It helps to not be alone.
Does. It really helps not to be alone and have others that understand and are going through the same things that you are. Thank you.
And we all learn something new every day from everybody. That, just the simplest things, it's like, oh, didn't think of that. So education is the key to understanding and caring, and by sharing our experiences, we hope you've learned something from us, and we're here for you in our support groups, and ask your questions, and we'll try to answer them. If we don't have the answers, we'll share where the resources may be, where you may find them. And we don't know everything. We're not professionals. We're just everyday people living our lives, trying to make it a little bit easier for the next person to learn something from what we've learned throughout our journeys. So thank you for coming, and we appreciate, I thank you all for sharing your experiences and just reaching out to everybody across the world. And thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.